Okay, a couple of things I forgot. One very important thing I forgot to mention, and I should make a note of this, is how to render, right? Because that's important. Obviously, don't forget to save. That's something I always forget to do as I go. The render button is located down here. So if you click on this, this tells you where you want to spit it out. The default is buried in the keyshot folder, which is always frustrating to me. I tend to click on this folder and just click on my desktop and just send it there to begin with. You can change the name. Couple settings here. JPEG is probably good enough. PNG can be really handy if you want transparency. So anything, this white background, this would come in transparent. So this is good if you want to Photoshop this into another scene. That's where that's useful. For project 2, you need to print these out. I'm going to ask 11 by 17 because that way it's nice and big. People can see it. Print size, you can type this in here. 17 width, 11 inches height. It's fixed at a thing. So get it to be slightly bigger. At 200 dpi is perfectly good. So this might take a while for your machines to crunch. Anything bigger than like 3,000 pixels can take a little bit. Options, just leave this on the default. But sometimes, I used to do this a lot more. I don't do this anymore. But you can set maximum time. It's like, I only got 30 seconds for this. Obviously, don't do that. It's going to come out looking like a potato. But just, the default of 35 is good. I believe the lower you do, the quicker it'll render. You can let it render overnight. I believe this is, setting a queue is handy. You can say add job. Let's see, this must have been from last year. So I can click like add job and it remembers it. And then I can go back into my scene here. I could load my other scene set with the door closed. And I could say add job. And here, they're both in here. And then if you set your computer to not go to sleep, have it plugged into a power source, hit process queue, and then go and watch Netflix or whatever. Go back to the Mac for it to render. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I'll be honest, I don't know though. So that's basically it. It's just where is it outputting. I don't recommend going into Photoshop and editing stuff. It just gets fussy. Try and get a good render out of this. If you want to edit anything in Photoshop, it might be like the levels. If it came in too dark or something, I'll give you permission to use that. Obviously, I guess I have no way to know if you use Photoshop or not, but strong recommendation to try and avoid that crutch. You will be a more efficient designer if you learn how to get good renders right out of Keyshot off the bat. That said, sometimes a little bit of Photoshopping is not bad. If you are Photoshopping, checking this clown box is helpful. What this will do is it will spit out 2 renders. It'll spit out this pretty render that you wanted. It will also spit out a very silly looking render where each separate material is just going to be a flat color. It makes selecting bodies and stuff really easy. So that's what these are. Clown is about the only one of those that I use. Are there any questions on outputting renders? What size paper is it going to be on? Awesome. Now here's the thing. I'm only collecting that 11 by 17 printout render. That means that I am grading the print quality, not like did the printer do a good job printing it. What I mean is it might look really beautiful on your screen. The minute that the printer spits it out, it's a little bit darker. That's very typical. Prints will come out darker. So if your contrast looks beautiful on your screen and it prints and it's not as beautiful in the print, I'm sorry, I'm grading the print. If you want a good grade on that, the way to do it is just print a small swatch before you print it. I know it's a bit more work, but it is part of having a physical review. If you're super lazy, my advice to you, err on the side of making it lighter and easier to view than darker. But the best possible thing you can do is just make a small 8.5 by 11 with with what you intend to print it out, look at it. If it looks too dark, brighten it. If you're a little bit more organized, you might have several settings in Photoshop with levels or brightness, contrast, whatever your preferred method is, and just see which one looks better. Is that cool? Is that clear? Okay. So since we're on the topic of project 2, we're just going to stick with that for now. So the way Monday is going to work, you're all going to come in, you're going to have 3 renders at 12 noon, I'm going to ask that you have all of your digital files uploaded. So that is your 9 CAD parts, which we went over on Monday, but I'm assuming some of you made changes. And then your updated toaster, which I'll talk about in a bit. And then your assembly, however you want to approach that, which I will also talk about in a minute here. So those are your digital files. While we're talking about it now on Box here, I will create a new project folder here. So a new folder here. Yes, please pack and go your assembly, because if you do not, what will happen is I'll open the assembly and it won't point to anything, and I will take off, like, I'm going to count that as you didn't turn your work in. So please pack and go. Remember to do that. So again, you have the components of the project that you are bringing on Monday. You are uploading all digital files to Box by noon, and you are bringing 3 prints to class. Item number 5, don't worry about it. This helps me give you feedback, but I realize it's kind of fussy. It's not necessary. I will get into these digital files in a little bit more depth in a minute here. I want to talk about points briefly. So just remember, I had this pulled up, and of course now it's gone. Just remember, all the basics we talked about. Try not to forget them. Master sketch, attaching things to the origin. Look at your feedback from project 1. Chances are I'm looking for the same stuff. I meant to pull this up earlier. Don't forget these requirements, okay? Actually, there's probably a new one. So don't forget these requirements. Use at least 1 loft, use at least 1 sweep across the whole project. Handle no taller than 3 inches. I'll take off points at 4. So on and so forth. The only one to add now would be that the toaster finish must be the same in all 3 renders. So don't forget those requirements. Like I said, when I'm grading, I'm looking for the same stuff. So I'm just looking at my notes the last time I graded. Make sure your sketches are on the origin, okay? If you have a sketch that's not attached to the origin, that's going to be a problem. Double check for bodies being merged, unmerged. That's less of a concern, but check for that. Check for anything in your tree that's unnecessary. If you have something suppressed, just delete it. If you have an error and you can't figure it out, we'll talk about that in a bit, but see if you can suppress it or solve that. Yeah, same stuff here. I mean, it's all listed in the syllabus, right? 3 points for assemblies, no missing files, proper mates. Again, think back to that demo. Go back and watch that video, that video day. Make sure you don't have any build features in the assembly. I guess this is the first time I'm mentioning it, but try to look at your assembly. There shouldn't be any build features in here. Occasionally happens, but it shouldn't. What else? Model integrity, again, efficient build. Again, I'm checking for a master sketch, build in half wherever possible. Tree organization, typically keeping fillets towards the bottom is good practice, but I realize it's not always important or possible. I'm looking for, the loft and sweep to look correct. I'm going to be looking for any seams in the loft if you're mirroring stuff, so try and double check that stuff. Don't forget to do tangencies. And then family feel, this is all like outside of SolidWorks. This is kind of like based on the render and how it looks. Are there any questions on that? So some brief SolidWorks things. Again, if you set up your assembly, one thing I want to show you is you can right-click on this and you can say, it's somewhere in here. Come on now. There it is. It's down here. Replace components. So once you set up one assembly, a simple way to do something would be to click on Replace Components. And now you could browse for your different handle, your handle number 2 or whatever. Right? I can pick one of your handles here, and if it's created in the same orientation, it should update. Sometimes, like, some of the mates will be lost, but in general, if you created all your handles the same way, it should update smoothly. So I just wanted to show you all that you could do that. That's one method. The other method that some people did last time is you can select all of these things and you can put these in a folder and you can simply suppress or hide them, and then you can put in a new family. This mirror component aspect of it, this was part of the demo. It's one way to do something. You can also just put 4 feet in. I think I showed 2 methods to do that with the knobs. So if you go with this method, you would have one assembly with all the parts in there. When you bring it into KeyShot, just make sure to have everything visible. It's going to look silly. Your toaster is going to have 3 handles, 3 knobs, and all that stuff overlapped on each other. When you bring it in, it will take a little bit of time in KeyShot dragging things around to organize them. So you can kind of pick what your battle is. Do you want one assembly that you have to organize in KeyShot, or do you want 3 assemblies that you don't have to organize in KeyShot? The trade-off is if you bring 3 different assemblies into KeyShot, you are going to have to apply the materials to the toaster 3 times. So again, it's all a trade-off. So just weigh that. If you go through the trouble and create one assembly with multiple handles, multiple knobs, multiple feet, you then only have to apply the material once to the toaster. It just means you have to kind of do a little bit of dragging and organizing in KeyShot. For what it's worth, the last time I taught this class, I would say 80–90% went with the method of one assembly and just organizing in KeyShot. That seemed to be the preferred method. I don't have a preference. I don't care. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. That's all I have.